This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee by going to piltchpoint.live/purevpn. So, processors have not been the only hardware talked about this week, including from Apple, right?
Yes. So after Apple made the M1 announcement this week, we started to get a lot of interest in our article about USB 4 because Apple's M1 based laptops and their Mac Mini that they announced all are going to have USB 4. They're not the first, actually, because the Intel Tiger Lake powered laptops, otherwise known as 11th gen core laptops, that started coming out about a month ago, also have USB 4, and they have Thunderbolt 4. But let's break it down for a second, because a lot of people are rightfully confused about what USB 4 is and what you can do with it, and how it relates to Thunderbolt 4 and Thunderbolt 3. So take a step back with me a couple of years. Thunderbolt 3 has been out for a couple of years now. My ThinkPad that I got 2 years ago has it, and it's been around for a couple of years more than that. Thunderbolt 3 allows you to transfer data at up to 40 gigabits per second, which is 8 times faster than most USB ports. Most of the USB 3 ports that people have, the little blue ports, can go at up to 5 gigabit per second. There are 10 gigabit ports, and there are Type-C 20 gigabit ports that are quite rare, but most of the time it's 5. So what do you do with a Thunderbolt? Well, for one, you could have a docking station like this Pluggable docking station that I just tested and just came out this week. This Pluggable here is now out for $300, and it allows you to output to dual monitors, and it actually gives you a choice of like HDMI or DisplayPort. So you can have like either you have 2 monitors, and each one is, you get your choice. Nice. And it has like 7 USB ports, 5 on the back. These are all 5 gigabit ports, but then these 2 on the front are 10 gigabit USB ports, and this outputs 100 watts. Well, actually, technically 96 watts of power for charging your up to a MacBook Pro. So this is I'm throwing this in as another little thing that I tested this week. This is the Pluggable TBT3 UDZ. Say that 5 times fast. Dock. Now, this is one of many Thunderbolt docks, and what's great about Thunderbolt is it has the bandwidth that you can output, 40 gigabits, so you can do direct from your graphics card, really fast video, not like a lot of USB docks that use display link technology, which works on any USB, but then uses some of your CPU's bandwidth to manage the video and compress the signal. So Thunderbolt 3 has been great not only for docks, but for eGPUs, which are external graphics cards, where you can literally get a box which holds an NVIDIA or AMD graphics card connected up to the Thunderbolt port on your laptop, which otherwise maybe has integrated graphics, and now you can play games. And that's possible because of the bandwidth of Thunderbolt. Also, you can get really, really, really blazing fast external SSDs. So those are the things that you can do with Thunderbolt 3. Now, the issue with Thunderbolt was always, in order to have a Thunderbolt port, you have to get it certified by Intel, and that costs money, and I think there's some licensing involved. And so you never ever see an AMD system with Thunderbolt, because AMD Intel, and you never saw a non-Intel system with Thunderbolt, and even among those that were Intel, it wasn't standard. Now USB USB 4 comes out, and USB 4 includes in its spec compatibility with Thunderbolt 3. It's not required in the spec, but most laptops that have USB 4 will also support Thunderbolt 3 devices. Phones will also have USB 4, so phones may not support Thunderbolt because you don't really need to put a dock like this or an eGPU with your phone. You don't need to work those together. USB 4 gives you 20 or 40 gigabit per second speeds, and it gives you the ability to do something called port tunneling, protocol tunneling, which allows the USB connection to share bandwidth between different types of data. So right now, USB has had something for a while called USB alternate mode, which means that a lot of laptops and have send video over a USB-C connection, and they can send the videos usually just using the DisplayPort protocol, which sometimes it's HDMI, but it's usually DisplayPort protocol. But when they do that, nobody's really managing the connection to say, okay, DisplayPort is only using 10 of our 40 gigabits per second. Let's give the other 30 to this external SSD that's trying to copy a file. With protocol tunneling, the USB 4 can smartly manage that, so that if you are sending a bunch of data from your webcam and you have an external backup drive, maybe your backup drive is even a PCIe backup drive, and you've got an eGPU and you're sending data, it is able to parse that up and play traffic cop with the bandwidth to make sure that each device is getting as much bandwidth as possible, as opposed to just giving all of the lanes, all of the data lanes to maybe a device that doesn't need all of them at once. Another thing USB 4 gives you is USB 4 also works with alternate mode, and it will allow DisplayPort 2 standard over alternate mode. What does that mean to you? It means it can just support an 8K 60 hertz monitor. And in order to do that, it actually needs more bandwidth than USB 4 can actually do. USB 4 does 40 gigabits per second, but that's bidirectional. 40 gigabits going up and 40 gigabits coming down. If you use DisplayPort 2, it will actually send all 8 lanes of data to the monitor, and therefore use up to 80 gigabits. But however you look at it, USB 4 is a good thing and has a lot of potential. So where are we with it? Well, right now, Apple's M1 based laptops and desktop that were just announced support Thunderbolt. They're not using Intel CPUs, as we have just discussed, but they are using Thunderbolt. The new Intel powered laptops from Dell, Lenovo, HP, all of those companies, those are going to also have USB 4. Now, there's a little bit of confusion because some of those that have USB 4, it says that they also have Thunderbolt 4. Apple actually advertises that they have Thunderbolt 3 and USB 4, but they don't say Thunderbolt 4. Well, what's Thunderbolt 4 in comparison to Thunderbolt 3? Nothing. It's actually nothing. Thunderbolt 4 is a certification program from Intel that certifies that a computer can use all the features of USB 4, including Thunderbolt 3 compatibility. So if your computer supports USB 4 and the Thunderbolt 3 compatibility has been enabled, and it has 40 gigabits instead of 20 gigabits. Because as I said, it could be just a 20 gigabit connection. If it has all that stuff, it is Thunderbolt 4 compatible. It's just that the company is probably not paying Intel the money to put that logo on their box, basically. So no one should worry about not getting or getting Thunderbolt 4. What you really want to know is my new computer going to have USB 4? And if possible, is my new computer going to be Thunderbolt 3, have the version of USB 4 that's Thunderbolt 3 compatible? Obviously, if they say that it's Thunderbolt 3, then you know you're compatible. But one thing that's a little bit interesting is there's compatible and then there's compatible. Apple also announced this week that its new M1 computers will not work with Thunderbolt 3 eGPUs, even though they're advertising the laptops as Thunderbolt 3 compatible and as having USB 4. They will apparently not work with eGPUs. Now, when you think about it, the eGPUs and docks like this are pretty much the main reasons why you want Thunderbolt in the first place. I mean, you also might want, if you want just to buy a really expensive, ridiculously fast external backup drive. That's the other common use case.
TV production and stuff like that.
Yeah. So for that you would get, but I mean, it is real, like one of the things that people would really want Thunderbolt or USB 4 for is an eGPU. And Apple used to tout, I think with their Intel chips, that they actually didn't they have an official eGPU they were recommending to people on apple.com?
Yep. And they made a big deal when they launched it.
Yeah. So I don't know if they plan to change that, but Apple kind of quietly, it wasn't in the official announcement, but they told, I'm trying to think which outlet it was. We have it covered on tomshardware.com. That they've said that eGPUs will not work with these new laptops. So that's kind of a bummer, and points to the fact that especially when it comes to something like eGPUs, just because something says it's Thunderbolt 3 doesn't mean it's necessarily compatible. Certainly, if you're out there looking for an eGPU, there's some really great sites out there that do compatibility testing, because even with laptops that are Intel powered that are Thunderbolt 3, there have been compatibility issues with eGPUs. So, but overall, USB 4 is promising. Now, there's really no peripherals out yet that are labeled as USB 4. The closest that we have is that there is a dock from OWC that is labeled as Thunderbolt 4, but which I guess means, by extension, it's USB 4. All that would really mean is that it's capable through the dock of doing 40 gigabit per second transfers, hopefully. So, that is the one peripheral out there, but so far we haven't seen anything that was marketed as a USB 4 peripheral. On the other hand, though, if you bought a Thunderbolt 3 hard drive, a Thunderbolt 3 external SSD hard drive wouldn't come close to the 40 gigabit per second. It will work in a USB 4 port on these MacBooks. So, you will get that 40 gigabit per second of bandwidth, even though those SSDs are not, have not been labeled as USB 4 devices. So, we've got a really big FAQ on USB 4 on tomshardware.com. And, if you're interested in learning about this new connection standard, which will, slowly but surely become standard on laptops, I encourage you to check it out.
It's definitely a lot of information, and a lot of like weird branding from Intel on Thunderbolt 4, for example, not exactly meaning anything. It's just
right. Yeah.
It's Very
it's a
weird.
branding program. It's a branding program, and I don't know if Intel really wants you to know that, right? Really wants people to shout about that.
Well, the cat's
But
out of
it
the
is
bag now,
not.
buddy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it's no secret. I mean,
I know.
they may at some point. They've been very close to the vest about this. So at some point, who knows? Maybe Intel will roll out and say, "Oh, look, there's some other Thunderbolt 4 standard that's faster." But um, what it is really just a certification, and therefore n- not not really meaningful. I mean, I guess the good news is if you see something as labeled as Thunderbolt 4, you can pretty well assume that it's if it's Thunderbolt 4, then it's going to support all the features of USB 4, which means 40 gigabit transfers, not 20,
True.
and backward compatibility with Thunderbolt 3, which is not required of something to say that it's USB 4. So, you know, there is a lot of jargon surrounding this. I certainly don't think people should run out and buy a new laptop just so that they can get one that has USB 4. I mean, the big change in USB that was a really big deal is getting power over USB,
Hmm.
and that happened a few years ago. Uh, and Frankly, every time I talk to the people from the USB forum, as I did USB implementer forum, as I did on Friday, I always ask them, when are we going above 100 watts? So far, no answer about that. Because USB 4 still supports USB power delivery, which is the power standard. But as with anything else, the amount of power delivery varies
Hmm.
and can be up to 96 or 100 watts, but no higher than that. So for any laptop that has integrated graphics, that's usually fine. But then when you get to a system that has discrete graphics, like a gaming laptop of any kind, you still have to use a proprietary connector to get that higher wattage. So
It's always interesting, Avram, to see how incredibly similar yet different we are, because I asked the exact same question of the Wireless Power Consortium. Uh, when are we going to get more than? Uh, Whenever I talk to them, as opposed to you talking to the USB implementation forum and asking the same question. Because
I mean, I personally haven't talked to the Wireless Power Consortium in a while.
I want my wireless kitchen. I want the key standard to be out in the wild now that it has a name. That's that's my big thing in power
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, that is something that I'm really missing. I will say real quick, kind of inside baseball. One thing I'm really going to miss by not being at CES this year is that's a topic that I end up covering a lot at CES and then almost not at all the rest of the year.
Hmm.
Somehow, every CES show for the last like three CESs, I've ended up with appointments with like three or four different wireless power vendors who want to talk about how they're just this close to being able to charge your phone over the air, right? And by wireless power, I mean really wireless
Uh
power,
huh.
not putting your phone down on a Qi charger so that so that you don't have to plug in a cable, but you still have to leave it here. But like wireless over the air charging, um,
Nikola Tesla
there's
charging.
still. Yes, exactly. I mean, they've shown me things. It can work, and I think this year we saw one of the first commercial devices to do it. I'm trying to remember the name, but there was actually a Nintendo Switch controller charger
Hmm.
that uses the technology. But I think your controller still has to be in the dock to do it or something. It's not. It's still not exactly what we would want. So
Right. Well, that's obviously that was a weird side tangent for us, but it's it's a passion of mine, especially the key standard. I cannot wait to be able to put a blender down anywhere on a counter and have it work. Anyway, I'm I I'm always intrigued by the inner workings of things like the USB standard and the Thunderbolt standard and all the weirdness that goes into it. And I am personally not ever able to keep up on all the details, so I always appreciate when you do it for me, Avram.
Yeah, we're trying to bring some clarity to something that is a little bit confusing. I should say real quick that the USB IF also doesn't like people to be confused, and they like they are among the biggest, most annoyed by companies using all these numbers like USB 3.1 and 3.2, and what they actually are going to put as their like packaging logos, the certificate when you get certified for USB 4, are not actually going to say USB 4. The logos that they use will say USB 20 gigabit and USB 40 gigabit to just literally tell you that's the speed, and we're not going to worry you with the version number. But to keep it real, I mean, people are going to companies don't a lot of companies don't use these logos, and where most of us get our information about what USB the computer has is not from a logo on the package, but from the spec sheet that's on the product page, or the retailer's product page or the company's product page, and that will probably continue to say USB 4 and USB 3 and USB 3.2 and all that.
Yeah, we're never gonna get away from that, but thankfully it's better than Wi-Fi AQC and whatever stupid things they used to do. So, at least there we're just calling it Wi-Fi 6 now. So, anyway, thank you, Avram, for having this FAQ and giving us a better idea of what it is that we're looking at for stuff coming out. You said that obviously the FAQ is on the website.
Yes, and as we speak on our homepage, because we've been getting a lot of traffic for it, because people have shown renewed interest, and that's when we've actually made major updates to it on Friday, because I got a chance to talk to USBIF and make sure we had all the latest information.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for all of that, and for getting the updated information. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about next.